For time beyond memory, people have experienced at first hand physical, visual and auditory events which could not be explained, and so it was feared. Today, we call this the paranormal. Our podcast will delve into this world of the unknown. So sit back and join Tina, Jake, Chris, Bridget and Bill and journey into the darkness with us. Welcome to Paranormal Researchers Ireland podcast.
Welcome to episode 5 of Paranormal Researchers Ireland podcast, and today we've got something different again from last time. We've got different types of hauntings. So we're looking into poltergeist activity, theories, residual, everything that you could think of, and we're going to hop over to Chris. Yes, we are. We're going to hop over to Chris and he can tell us. You've done a little bit of research, haven't you, Chris?
I have indeed.
History. What is it? The history of hauntings?
So, well, there was a lot of stuff out there. And obviously, just before we kicked in, I said I'd do what the general consensus or the general idea of a ghost, what it actually is. So, looking up online, it said in ancient times the idea was that a person's spirit exists separately from their body and can linger after a person dies. So due to this, a lot of cultures began to carry out funeral rites to ensure that the person's spirit wouldn't haunt those that were left behind. An apparition or dead people or whatever, things like that, they said it used to come in various different forms, like a glow, a haze, full body apparition and stuff like that. Delving a little bit further, then I looked into kind of early ghost sightings and documentations and stuff like that. And in the 1st century AD, a Roman statesman, Finney the Younger, reported in his letters that an old man with a long beard and rattling chains was haunting his house in Athens. In Germany, AD 856, the first poltergeist case was recorded at a farmhouse whereby a poltergeist tormented the residents by throwing stones and starting fires, etc. And then the last kind of interesting thing for this introduction that I found was it's the possible first depiction of a ghost is said to be on a 3,500-year-old Babylonian tablet, which is the part of a guide of how to exorcise ghosts, which is actually currently at the British Museum. Following studies of this item, the image appears to show a male ghost being led back to the afterlife. So yeah, that's a nice little introduction.
And that's crazy. I never didn't know about the first.
Yeah.
That's interesting.
Well, yeah, well, it goes back to biblical times as well. But,
yeah.
And again, getting back to the word poltergeist, that means noisy spirit.
Yeah.
For anyone that's not familiar with the term, that's where the term comes from. It's obviously a spirit or an entity or
German
energy.
word.
Yeah, energy that can move objects.
Yeah.
You know.
And that's where on the team, which is really interesting, we've all got a different theory of poltergeist. I think a poltergeist has never walked the earth. I think a poltergeist is like it manifests from different energies or troubles or in a house, you know, from teenagers, things like that. For Chris, you believe it's a troubled...
Yeah, like I think it's... I'd be of the opinion that it's a kind of a disgruntled spirit, for want of a better word. In other words, you're in my house, get the hell out.
Like what you'd be, yeah. Disgruntled.
Did you just...
You're disgruntled in life, Chris.
Like you just cannot
You're
get...
a polter.
Like, we come here, we join together and we have a little friendly chat, and every episode, Jack, there's been a derogatory or some kind of a slagging term made towards me, and I'd like to throw my hat on the ground now.
Go to management.
No pun intended, throw my hat on the ground. Poltergeist.
Har.
So carry on there, Christopher.
But no, I think it's like an angry spirit. That's the way I'd look at it. If someone said the word poltergeist to me, it's something that's not happy that you're there. It wants you out. It wants you away from its property.
Do you think it's somebody who has died?
Oh yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And then Billy, what's your opinion?
I'm kind of on the fence that I kind of think it could be both.
Okay.
there are obviously famous hauntings like the Enfield haunting, and there's a haunting case in Enniscorthy, which we'll talk about a bit later on, and they're both different poltergeist activities. One is around teenagers, centered around teenagers, so they think that this activity was its energy from the teenagers coming from a bad background and stuff like that. Troubles and stuff like that. Yeah, and then the other one, which I'll talk about later on in Enniscorthy, would be more, there was adults involved, there was no kids involved, so it's hard to prove,
different,
you know, but yeah, different
What
theories.
about you,
It's
Jake?
interesting.
Yeah, the Enfield haunting, that was meant to be a poltergeist case, and I think, correct me if I'm wrong, but that was an old man that was there before, wasn't it?
Yeah, that
That's-
would be a spirit.
That
yeah,
was
a man who lived there.
But the case was a poltergeist case,
it was.
Yeah.
and in that case, it was a person
old
who
man.
died. So,
Mm. Yeah, there's different theories
There
on
is,
it.
there's loads of different
There is.
cases
But
where
that's-
poltergeists have been mentioned and they haven't been spirits of people who have passed. So
Well, as a team, we've witnessed, I think once, only when we were doing a private investigation. We can't name the location, obviously, but we
Possible.
captured a noise of a switch being switched on and off, and we done an experiment, and it was the same noise. So
that possibly
think
could have
that
been
possibly could have
poltergeist.
been poltergeist
You did think
activity.
it was that.
But,
Yeah,
that
I
was the
did.
last episode, actually, just in case
That
people
was the
haven't-
last episode. Yeah, we
people
have actually
haven't.
audio of it. It's on the
Yeah, it's on
the
that
last
episode.
podcast. Yeah.
So, kicking off, guys, we're going to outline some of the kind of generalized hauntings we've got. Residual, or that can be linked to stone tape. Take two. That can be linked to stone tape theory as well. You've got the intelligent haunting. You've got the poltergeist haunting as well. Now, I know we've said you can go into demonic hauntings, but we're leaving that separate.
We can do a whole other
We're going to do a different,
podcast
exactly.
on. So, residual would be, it's like, if you can imagine, it's like a tape just replaying.
Yeah.
So that's just making it easy for people to understand the concept. So it's like, it's really interesting because sometimes you'd be looking at a location and somebody would say that somebody walks, a spirit they see that walks through the wall. It would be the same time every day or similar times. And that wall, when you research back, could have been a door.
Yeah.
And you can only see half of the spirit, so the floor could have been lower. So it's just a replay over and over. And then intelligent would be a ghost or a spirit that can
Interact.
interact with you.
If you say, "Can you knock once for yes and twice for no?"
Yeah.
That's an intelligent
An
response.
intelligent.
Yeah, and I think one of the most famous stone tape theories is the case in 1953 in York, in England, and there was a plumber working down under the ground in a house, and he was walking away, and he heard this like a high-pitched sound, and he thought it sounded like a trumpet, and next thing he saw this, you can just describe it as a Roman soldier just walking through a wall,
Right.
and he was about 18 inches below the ground, so he would have been waist height to the plumber. And he jumped back, startled obviously, and he swore then that next a horse walked past them with a Roman soldier on it, and then a battalion
Yeah.
of Roman soldiers walked past, but they didn't pay any heed to him. And,
Like he wasn't there.
Yeah, like he wasn't there, and they just walked through a different wall, and then when they excavated, they found that there was a Roman footpath.
There was actually
there.
footpath there, yeah.
And he
You
wouldn't have
see, when
known
you
about
hear
that.
when you hear things like that, it's really interesting. I know people can believe and not believe. It's believers
Yeah.
or non-believers, and that's. I mean, we're open to everything. We don't
Yeah.
mind that. But when you hear stories like that, you're thinking, and they have no idea.
That's the normal everyday folk that
Like, that's
we
really
go
mad.
we go looking for it, but it happens mostly to people who are just completely unaware, not expecting something to happen, and then out of the blue they see an apparition, or
Yeah.
like the Grey Lady's quite a famous ghost as well in a lot of places.
Isn't
and
it?
stuff.
Actually, to
Yeah.
capitalise on what you've just said, it's like you're introducing my next section here, Billy. I just I'm
Psychic.
psychic, psycho.
Psycho.
So I have three kind of famous ghosts that were documented in history.
Okay.
It's not big long bad stories, but it just might be interesting just to throw it out there. So in the 16th century, Anne Boleyn, the second wife to King Henry VIII, was executed at the Tower of London. That was due to being accused of witchcraft, treason, incest, and adultery, and she was actually, there were sightings of her ghost reported there afterwards, obviously, and as well in her childhood home in Kent. In the 19th century, Benjamin Franklin's ghost was apparently seen at the library of the American Philosophical Society, Philadelphia. And as well, it's reported, which I found interesting, that the statue of him there comes to life and dances.
Okay. One of the things that's very synonymous with the Grey Lady haunting as well is it's always mournful ghost.
Yeah.
It's and apparently, obviously, grey is a kind of like a very somber colour anyway, but yeah, it's always a mournful ghost anywhere that it's been seen, and they're quite common.
Yeah. I'm just kind of wondering what kind of music is that statue dancing to?
Bebop or something.
Yeah, you said about the statue dancing, and Billy's like, yeah, and
The Grey Lady, there was no kind
the
of...
statue
very
dancing.
serious.
There's a statue
Yeah, well,
dancing.
I see that.
Like,
Just
come on.
Billy,
I
there's
think that you want
a
to see me
statue
dancing.
reported that comes to life and dances. That statue.
I didn't hear the last thing.
You didn't hear the last
I don't listen to Chris. So.
And finally,
Straight
I said,
over
I
his
said,
head.
I said a tree. Billy jumps in, and the Grey Lady. No, but Abraham Lincoln's ghost as well is said to have been seen near the Springfield Capitol building and also the White House itself. And Gettysburg is where he gave his speech. The reason I'm laughing, guys,
And anyway, onto the Grey Lady ghost.
Billy loves the Grey Lady.
I done a recording in Gettysburg before, Billy,
You did?
didn't I?
You did.
Let's not talk about the recording. in
Let's push
Gettysburg.
that under the carpet.
But no, anyway, back to it. So we have stone type theory, or residual, and which is kind of
Intelligent.
it's like a high energy or a high disaster happened there, and it's kind of trapped, and it just repeats over and over again. You've got the intelligent, as Tina was saying, which can actually respond to what you're saying, or respond in an activity, so to speak, by knocking or whispering or moving something. And then you've got poltergeist. So the poltergeist one, guys, what are we going to try out there?
Just before we go further, there is one more kind of haunting.
That's twice you've cut me off, Billy.
No. This is going to lead into this. A trauma ghost.
Oh yeah,
Which
yeah,
is
yeah.
somebody who died very violently,
Yeah.
and they say that their energy will hang around, and that's what causes poltergeist activity.
Yeah.
That makes sense.
So
yeah.
a trauma ghost as well. That's another thing that will lead into your next
Yeah.
segment, Chris.
But
Well, sorry for the poltergeist one. I think the one we should start off with would be the one in Enniscorthy.
Yeah,
Only because I've never heard of that.
yeah.
That's the first time.
It's quite a famous one. Apparently, I only found out
Weird.
about.
Have
I only
you heard
found
about
out.
that?
genuinely,
lads.
genuinely not.
I found out about it about a month ago, but I genuinely didn't know about it. But it was in 1910, and a journalist by the name of Nicholas Murphy, who was a staunch Roman Catholic, he was about 40 years old. He was asked to go to this house, and it was in Court Street. I don't know if I should name that, but it's in Court Street, and they were quite a well-off family. But anyway, they used to make money by keeping lodgers and stuff like that. So these three tradesmen who were lodgers
Yeah.
decided to stay one night. They were walking down that area, and one of them woke up. The blanket was ripped off his bed, so he thought that the other two had done it. So they swore blindly that they didn't, and they could hear banging sounds, etc., etc. And then the three of them were literally sitting on the bed, and the bed flipped sideways. But when it flipped sideways, it didn't make any sound. So, Nicholas was called in to see what would happen, and he witnessed stuff as well. So it was reported. So
That's
it's
brilliant. I've
yeah.
looked more into that one.
yeah. I'm going to look more into it.
And then the one they say is the most famous poltergeist on the Isle of Ireland, England, up north, is the Cunean
Oh, yeah.
poltergeist. So the Cunean poltergeist was in County Fermanagh.
Yeah.
Little cottage up on a hill, and it was the Murphy family. We put up a post on the Paranormal Researchers Ireland Facebook page, so go over to there. We put up a post about that one. Have a little read about it. But they were terrorised. They had a few kids, and I mean, seemingly this poltergeist just manifested. So they didn't say it was from a spirit, but they had a load of kids, and the Catholic priest done 2 exorcisms, I think, and none of them were successful, and they had said that they were moving to America to get rid of this poltergeist.
Oh, wow.
And I followed them.
I was about to say, it followed them, didn't
Yeah,
it?
so they got the boat over, and actually things got so bad on the boat that the ship's captain was going to put them off the boat.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah.
wow.
Yeah, there was so much noise and knocking and shout. There was so much going on. He was going to put them off the boat. And then everything just subsided. When they were over in
Right.
America, everything just subsided, but they had years of torment.
It's interesting, doesn't it?
Very interesting.
back
And
to
that
the-
house is still standing, the
Yeah.
Canan.
Oh,
Like, it goes back to what we were talking about. Is it an actual entity or spirit, or is it manifested?
I know.
And like
like
again,
kinetic energy. kind of,
exactly.
yeah.
And like, I've genuinely,
Telekinesis.
like, I've heard all the theories at bars. Like, it is like adolescence and all that kind of stuff, and teenagers. Is what's the right word? Transferring over to adolescence. That's the right word to use. But before we came on air, as we call it, I genuinely, literally just today had heard about the Philip experiment.
That's interesting. I never heard of that.
Have you heard of that, Billy?
I've heard of it.
And did you hear about that?
No, I haven't heard about that.
And it sounded like, again, heard it on YouTube. I love listening to all kind of mad stuff on there. But so it was this experiment that was done back in the 1970s in Canada. I think it was led by a British researcher, George Owen was his name, and he was of the opinion that ghosts were manifested by people's minds, out of their heads and all that kind of stuff. And this is going to kind of lead into the poltergeist kind of stuff as well. So what he done, he got a group of 8 researchers, and they made up a ghost, and his name was obviously Philip, and they gave him a whole history, whole background, whole love life, everything, what he worked at, how he died, all that kind of stuff. And they had seances around the table trying to manifest them, that particular ghost or that entity just itself. And I think for the first year nothing happened. It was just candlelight and stuff like that. So they just said, right, we'll try normal, just room lighting. And shortly afterwards, there was like knocks and the table moved, and there was bangs, and there was responses to the questions that they were asking about Philip. Now, he never actually manifested per a full blown apparition, but it was like a haze manifested around the table. And they were saying it was just interesting that they were able to manifest reactions or responses based on that.
There is a very simple version of that where
Crazy.
if you tell somebody that somewhere's haunted and bring them to a location, they'll automatically feel cold or chills.
Oh yeah,
And
yeah.
there are experiments with that as well.
Oh, you can plant seeds.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's a dangerous thing to do.
Actually, wasn't there one of those experiments done on the telly where they brought groups of people to different locations and told them a totally different,
Oh yes, ghost
totally
story.
different ghost story,
Yeah.
and they brought psychics and all, and the psychics picked up on this total wrong
Yeah.
ghost story, and the people picked up on the one that they were told, the totally wrong one.
Yeah.
It's like if you tell them
Oh, sure, you're planting the seed.
you're planting the seed, it's in their
absolutely.
head. What was that thing one of you were saying before we came on?
Or the other experiment.
Yeah.
I don't know the name of it. I'll have it for the next podcast or the next kind
But
of.
it was really interesting what you were saying.
They got a group of people for about 2 weeks, and they convinced them that poltergeists were real, etc., etc. And they would sit them behind a curtain and put 4 objects on a table at the other side of the curtain, and they would tell the people that the poltergeist is moving it. And for 2 weeks, they just kept drilling this into their head, and they would have cameras on it. And then I think on the last week or whatever, the last couple of days, one of the women, basically, objects were moved, and she came around and she was like, oh my god, they pulled the curtain, the objects have moved. And when they played the video back, she was subconsciously moving the objects herself and throwing them on the ground.
But she wasn't doing that
convinced
on purpose.
that it was like a kind of form of hypnosis.
Yeah, yeah.
But because they were told over and over and over again, it's like you've been told if you're going into a building, that's haunted, that's haunted, that's haunted.
Yeah.
And you keep bringing a group of people back. The more people that go, it'll spread, the wings will spread out further. And everyone will say, oh, and then a story will become of it, you know. And
I
that's
love all
what
these
happens, yeah.
theories and
But that's not to say that
experiments.
there are true poltergeist activities, or people do see ghosts. Like, it's 100% verified. People see ghosts and people have experiences.
So the question is, here comes me with my lovely questions now. Start round
This
one.
one's for Jake.
Round one. Which do you think would be the most interesting? And now when I say interesting, I mean there's no harm, there's no danger, there's not just interesting from a team, or no, actually a personal point of view.
Personal, yeah.
What you'd like to investigate and why.
Me first.
Right, you go first.
Poltergeist.
Why?
Because to me, it would be more activity,
Right.
and that's just in my head. There'd be more activity and probably just a little bit more adrenaline to go
Right.
in, you know, with an active poltergeist activity. And to me, that would
Okay.
be something that I
Okay,
would love
okay.
to do and
Um,
research.
Is there? Go ahead, yeah.
I would be of the same as Tina, because for me, doing an interest in the sound of the paranormal with infrasound and stuff like that,
Be
because
brilliant.
like the famous Enfield haunting where they capture the EVP of the old man talking and stuff like that, I that would be goldmine for me,
Yeah.
and I would have recorders everywhere.
Yeah.
Everywhere.
It'd just be one big,
Everywhere.
one big, huge
We'd
microphone.
be actually in a recorder.
What about you,
Yourself,
Jake?
Jake?
Yeah, Poltergeist would be cool to experience, but an intelligent spirit would also be
Yeah.
very interesting to experience, you know, just from a team's point of view. I
Yeah.
think the way we investigate and all that would be very interesting.
Is there a famous event in history that you... So we're talking about stone tape theory as well. Now we're just, for this purpose of the conversation,
What would be your favourite first?
no
Or are you
hauntings,
getting
because I
into
get scared very easily. No, and like, yeah, I suppose you'd have to veer towards Poltergeist, wouldn't you? Like you're nearly, for want of a better word, you're nearly kind of guaranteed something's going to...
That's what you
Do you know what I mean? It is the
yeah.
kind of thing where you're walking, like if someone contacted
High
the
energy and
yeah, exactly. If someone contacted the page and I think it's a poltergeist, you'll kind of be going...
You'd be there before they finish Polter.
You'll be catching the plate before it lands.
Yeah.
But like what I was going to say there, so we'll just say every event ever, like traumatic event, has been well, I'm not saying it is, but just for the purpose of the conversation, has been just captured there. So what event would you like to investigate, do you think? So I'll give you an example. Like a famous,
Gettysburg?
a famous battle. A famous battle maybe, or something.
Well, listen, we're going back, so we have a chance to redeem ourselves.
Well, no,
Billy has a chance to redeem.
And I will.
Billy has a chance to redeem himself. Hint, hint. But no, is there any kind of famous or well-known, I should say, event that you'd like to investigate? Within reason. Obviously, we don't want to talk about stuff that's very...
Get back to me on that one, because
Yeah.
there are a lot. I don't think there's only one event. I think there's probably a multitude of events. A list. I think you'd be the same.
Yeah, there'd be a list.
Yeah.
A list?
That's
I'd say
that's
so,
a
yeah.
silly one, Chris.
Is it?
No.
Can we start again? Right,
It's a
so...
good question. It's a
No.
really good question.
Chris obviously has an answer. What would
Oh, no, I
be the
don't.
famous one that you'd like?
No, genuinely don't.
Okay, but you have to answer now. I'm putting you on the spot.
Oh, Jesus.
Go on.
For some reason, the Amityville jumped into my head straight away.
I knew you were going to say that.
Did you?
I think I'd like
Yeah.
something that was a bit less well known.
Yeah.
Like you hear the famous stories, and obviously the movies have been made about them, so they're all very dramatic. And I think I'd like something a little bit more homegrown,
Yeah.
and
yeah.
something a little bit less well known.
Yeah, so you can get the credit for it.
No, so I can lose the recordings.
No, but it's not. But genuinely, I didn't have a preempted answer, and that's just the first thing that jumped into my head.
Amityville would be cool.
That would be cool. Like it would
Yeah.
be. Yeah, I'm not saying it wouldn't be cool. It'd be fantastic.
Like obviously, it's terrible what went on there, but what's happened afterwards is what you'd want to investigate. You know what I mean? And what kind of haunting do you think that was actually?
A really bad one.
I think from the stories and from the accounts, bit of everything, demonic, poltergeist,
That's what I was going to
residual,
say. Demonic.
stone tape.
Bit of everything, yeah.
Yeah, I think there's a bit of everything.
Because no, you did right. Stone tape, the whole lot. Jeez, actually, that was a good question. Now,
That's
does
a very
anything
good
jump into your mind? Here we go. What famous case would you like to investigate? Or well-known case, I should say.
Our one. Again, there's so many, Chris. Honestly, there's so many. Enfield. I'd love to go see the Enfields.
Really?
Yeah.
Ahoy.
I just from the moment I read about it, it just captured.
Right.
It was interesting. Now I know there's
It's
some
not
saying
glorified. It's just a very raw
Right.
story, and it's very raw what happened to those people, and it's really close to living memory.
Yeah.
As well. And people are still going back there, and they're still getting evidence. You know,
I suppose you've hit the nail on it. Like I suppose again, like those structures are still there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
There.
There's a thing to be said for that. And, like to say something did happen there.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And it is kind of a thing where you have to kind of stand back and say, "Geez," like some people probably go, "Geez, do I even want to investigate here?" Do you know what I mean?
I find it interesting that there's some of these cases, and I'd be getting back, let's say, to Ireland, but there's some of these cases as well that are documented where it would be, you know, like doctors and guards, and not even Ireland, it would be worldwide, but doctors and guards and have witnessed it. And that one, I remember we were speaking about it a week or two ago, of that guy up in the attic. I remember the noose around his neck.
San Pedro haunting, yeah.
That was so interesting, the San Pedro. That one, that one's famous. That one, like,
there's a famous one in Belfast as well. Where there was,
what was that?
we have the Hound of the Baskervilles here. So
You won't hear that on the links.
That's
it
the
was
sound effect there.
it was another podcast I heard it off, but basically 3 guys who were studying science, or 2 guys, were living in a flat and in a place in Belfast, and they were very analytical, and
Right.
they had visions, and they saw an apparition, and they heard stuff in the I don't want to go on too much because it's another podcast from another podcaster,
Right.
but these guys were scientists basically,
Right.
you know, and they were interviewed on it and stuff, like really interesting.
Yeah.
Maynooth is another one.
Oh,
yes.
St. Patrick's College, wasn't it? St. Patrick's College, yeah. Actually, it's just when you actually talk about it, you realise how much there has been, even just around Ireland.
Oh no, brilliant around
and again,
Ireland, yeah.
And again, if you were to categorise them, like you have your intelligence, you have your residual, you have your
Every time.
poltergeist, you have your
Every single town in Ireland, you can speak to somebody, speak to somebody, and
that's what Billy does at 12 o'clock at night.
they will tell you about a house that's reputedly haunted by something.
Yeah, it's mad actually when you think about the different type of hauntings around there. Like you've got your residual, you've got your intelligence, you've got your poltergeist. So you can nearly categorise them if you were to go through them all, you know.
Like famous Irish residual hauntings, I suppose, are monks. A lot of monks for some reason in Ireland are seen.
Oh, there's
From every monastery. I think that's
Ireland's so old.
Yeah,
We've so many
ancient
monasteries.
history.
There's also the nighttime hauntings, the hag
Yeah.
That's a good
people.
one. Yeah,
How many times have we got messages into our page about
sleep paralysis and all that
what's
kind
it?
of stuff.
Sleep paralysis.
Yeah.
We've had
And-
loads.
And it's weird as well the way everyone has described the same kind of, obviously the same kind of feeling, stuff like that, but the same image
Yeah.
of whatever
So
it
explain
is.
there what sleep paralysis is, just as we are getting into it.
Well, obviously we're not doctors or anything like that, but a quick overview of sleep paralysis is that you wake up before your body does, is the quickest example I can give of it.
It's when your body is in
Your
a certain
brain is the-
REM.
Yeah, exactly. Like you're aware, but the rest of your body hasn't actually officially woken up yet. And people claim that obviously they can't move and stuff like that, but there's something else in the room with them, either sitting on them or crushing them.
They
or
feel it on their
They
chest.
feel it on their chest, yeah.
And this is meant to be, I've never had, has anybody here had it? Any of you three?
No.
It's meant to be absolutely terrifying what what people have
I'd
explained
say
to
it's, can you actually literally imagine?
Oh, it'd be absolutely. I don't think
crazy.
it would be the same again.
Actually, if there's anyone listening, and if you want to keep it anonymous, send us in your story if you've ever actually experienced it, or if you know someone.
Loads have, yeah.
Send it in to us.
Yeah, because we're actually going to do that in another podcast where we're going to get you guys to tell your stories and we'll discuss them. I
Yeah.
think that'd be really interesting.
So
Yeah,
we've
yeah.
got a couple of stories in already.
Yeah.
We've got,
Um,
and then another is where people can, when they're sleeping, they can move out of their sleep. I know they're not a different type of haunting, but they're like you can still put them in a category of. They're all different.
yeah.
Like,
Well,
Yeah.
CIA have done,
Activity.
CIA
Different
have done
activity.
experiments on astral projection.
that's so interesting.
Yeah.
Like that again,
in the Cold War and stuff like that.
I remember the alien hand syndrome as well. Look at David Teresa saying it because she always laughs.
Oh, ridiculous.
Have
Go
you
on,
heard of that,
explain
Billy?
that.
You've definitely heard of that.
Oh, we probably have, Chris.
Alien hand syndrome. So what is people wipe out when their own hands are actually strangling them. Their own hand is actually trying to kill him. You know what I mean? Which would be another very frightening experience, wouldn't it, Jack?
Yeah.
Have
That's terrible.
you heard of that before?
No.
Have you not?
No.
It was just an interesting one when like Tina's talking about people jumping out of beds and stuff like that, walking around. I know that's called sleepwalking, but my one is first actually going to kill you.
No.
I've never heard of it.
Do you know what astral projection is?
Oh no, of course I do. Yeah. No, it's not just Jake thought I was serious.
No, I didn't get it mixed up.
Chris is confusing astral projection with sleepwalking.
Another type, this is kind of what Tina was saying earlier about the nighttime hauntings. There's a modern ghost that's appeared in the last 50 or 60 years, and it's the Phantom Hitchhiker. And I am absolutely fascinated by them stories. The guy or
Where is
lady,
that one seen?
all over the country. A lot of times at crossroads, apparently.
In America, out in the deserts and all.
Yeah, and people will pick up this hitchhiker, and they'll get into the car, and they won't talk, and the person will be talking to them, no answer, and they'll just stop and point to the house. The guy lets them out of the house and calls in to see. He just gets this feeling that something's wrong. He goes up to the door, knocks the door, and somebody will answer and said, "I just dropped such and such in." The parent or the brother or sister, whoever, they're dead. Yeah, and it's just I just find it's very eerie, and it always gives me goosebumps when I read about them.
And similar to that, the black-eyed children.
Oh yeah. And
that's a crazy phenomenon.
The Hat Man is another one.
The Hat Man, yeah.
The Hat Man.
We actually had a date. Didn't we have something?
We had a case.
A case that dealt with that a few years ago.
God.
That was wild.
That's
we
right.
were warned that we could face it as well. Do you remember?
Yeah.
They warned us to be careful about it.
3 young lads or something had.
That's right.
I think me and Chris were invited to this one, right?
Yeah, that must be one where.
That was our secret one, Billy.
Is this pre-PRI?
This is PPP or I.
Yeah, that's our private page.
But no, seriously, go into obviously without telling names, so go a little bit into that one because
I think it was the first year that I was with it.
It was when we were,
Right.
And we were asked to do this case, and
was it the Hat Man or the Black Eyed Children?
The Hat Man.
Hat Man.
Right.
And he drew it out or something.
Yeah, he was seen in the field. He saw him in the field. They saw him at a dump or something like that, or a field. I can't remember. But it
was an old case that we done.
It was an old case, and they saw him in a field or a dump,
and that was the first time I had heard about that phenomenon, the Hat Man.
Yeah.
because I hadn't heard of that
they
before.
Were genuinely scared, like these people.
You see, that's where you're getting into the kind of thing as well.
It's a bad omen.
Yeah, there's the perfect word, or like bad omen, and then you can get to the realm of curses and all this kind of stuff as well.
Similar to the Mothman, I suppose, in America.
And there's another one, the Grinning Man, as well.
No. Chinese or
I think it's American. Maybe I'm only again off the top of my head. I think it's American. I'm not sure.
Yeah, say that one.
Again, it's the same phenomenon. It's literally a very, very dark energy or entity, and all you can see is just a big, huge grin, and it's meant to be
I
like.
I did hear that one as well. Yeah.
Cheshire Cat type of grin.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But goes to show you that when you come in just thinking you're going to talk about these kind of hauntings, and you don't know if it's mad.
Every culture has its own variation of it as well.
Oh yeah.
Some of the Japanese ghost stories are seriously scary. Like.
Oh yeah.
They'd be the scariest, I think.
They are, yeah. And I know they make a lot of movies out of it, but they're based on real. Traditions and real hauntings.
Which I think is the most dangerous kind of haunting?
You see, to me, it's one we're not covering because we'll do a whole other episode on it. But demonic.
Exactly.
And
not being prepared, and people going in alone to do these things without researching.
Yeah, exactly. And again, the demonic things is we could spend about 3 episodes nearly talking about that. Well, I'll just do an episode on myself.
Chris will do that at home, yeah.
And then he'll go home. He won't sleep then for 3 nights. He gets himself real scared and wound up.
The last thing I just want to highlight as well is that there was another I read a couple of years ago now. Remember stone tape theory?
Yeah.
There's actually water tape theory as well.
That's right. Yeah.
It gets trapped in the liquid or whatever.
Yeah.
But it's very hard to investigate because the water moves.
A lot of hauntings, like you hear people getting not chased by ghosts, by followed, but when they go to far side of the river, it stops.
It stops, yeah.
Like they can't cross water.
Yeah.
And that's in a lot of traditions as well, in other cultures.
Actually, we were at that lake. Remember Cry's Lake?
Oh, up the mountains.
Yeah, from the south. Wasn't he meant to be seen on horseback and all
Yes.
that, running or
Yeah.
galloping and all that kind of stuff? But yeah, to say rivers and all it can get trapped in the water, but obviously there are flaws with the river. But yeah, it's just an interesting kind of thing from that point of view,
There's a famous video, I think it was in Scotland a couple of months back, and the guy was I think he was fly fishing, and he was, again, like Tina said earlier, not paying any attention to anything. And at the far side of the river, you could just see this black mass, just kind of, for want of a better word, poking its head out. But it had no form to it. It was just like a weird black mass, and then it just dissipated back into the woods.
Yeah.
But it was, and he swears he didn't see it when he was there in the day. Because, when you're looking at a camera, everything looks further away. When you're looking at a phone camera or whatever, and obviously he was there, but he said there was nothing there.
Yeah.
And that's quite common as well when you hear about these ghosts in graveyards. People take a photograph of a gravestone, and there's a famous one of a lady in the 1930s she appears to be sitting on the grave.
Yeah.
But she looks like her head's down, she's mourning.
Right.
And then people are obviously saying no, there was nobody there, and it happens in houses and stuff like that. People, just normal Joe Soaps, not like where we go out and we'd be looking for evidence. They're just taking photographs of the family, and something appears in the background.
Yeah.
And then, before we wrap up this episode, the one thing that we forgot to cover, only like a 1 minute, elemental.
Oh yeah.
So the most famous case of the elemental would be in Leap Castle, County Offaly. The most famous one that I would be aware of.
Yeah.
Now, maybe somewhere else. Some say it's real, some say it's not. So,
It's an Irish. It's in the Irish culture. So I'd
Myth,
say
legend.
Yes, legend. Yeah. It would be kind of along the Banshee and the Puka, stuff like that, which we will talk about as well. Folklore. What's your opinion on all this, Jake?
I was going to ask you a question. Do you think all hauntings are bad, or do you think there can be a good haunting?
Yeah.
I suppose, well, some people say they get message from loved ones and stuff like that, and I suppose they feel safe when they go into a certain room in the house, and to me that would be a good haunting. And then obviously a lot of the stuff we've discussed tonight wouldn't be very good. It would be very traumatic. Some people feel protected in certain places by a haunting, and some hauntings apparently are trying to protect people.
Yeah, there's some people who just share their house.
Yeah.
Or share their castle. Share their life with a spirit, so they, it's real to them. And that would be one that they're not scared of. So I class that one as a good one. Yeah.
Then we've got the miracles as well.
Yeah.
Or the apparitions of like Jesus and Our Lady and all this kind of stuff.
The Bible is full of ghosts.
You know what I mean? Yeah. That's a very good question, Jack. I think both. It can be either or.
We tend to hear more of the dark.
Yeah.
If somebody's happy,
because it affects people so much.
Yeah, if somebody's happy, they don't contact us for help.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? If they're happy,
the odd time they might, for validity, they might contact us to say, "Is there something here?"
Just to validate.
What it is, but
mostly bad ones.
Yeah. What's the capitalising what Jake was saying there? And I know what Billy's obviously going to say. You can answer last. Which do you think is the better documented? I won't say proof of a haunting. Documented evidence from it, either visual or audio. Which do you think is better? Not you first, Billy. Tina.
What do you mean on a famous case?
Not on anything. So if I was to show you a photograph or a recording, which would you accept quicker?
Oh, Jesus.
Do you get me?
Yeah.
I know what Billy's going to say, that's why I said it.
I mean, it would be what way it was taken. So the picture, was it taken on a mobile phone? Was it taken on an old-style camera? The recording, what way was that recorded? Because there can be noises that are...
Just to kind of make it a bit, if the picture and the audio were both dove into and they couldn't be debunked. If we looked into a photo and a piece of audio and we couldn't
like this was classed as full
then
blown.
both of them I'd be impressed with. You know what I mean? If both of them were,
Yeah.
you
Would you
know,
have a preference? Would you prefer
audio, probably.
audio, right?
Probably audio.
Getting back to what Tina said, it would have to be, personally,
Yeah.
it would have to be something that we captured, because we can't, there's
the
no
only
way
way,
of proving
yeah.
that somebody else didn't doctor it somehow.
Yeah.
And if you went out and said it's 100% paranormal, and then they came along and went, well, I doctored that photograph.
Yeah, we see that's the thing.
Reputation is
We see
gone.
that's the
So
thing.
easy to edit
Yeah,
photos.
so
It'd be
I would
raging, yeah,
take,
that'd be
and I'm
awful.
not saying people fake, absolutely, no way. But
They do,
I
though.
would
They do.
take.
It'd
No,
be
people-
real.
yeah, I know that, but people do fake. Unfortunately, it happens.
Everyone doesn't. I mean,
You know,
Yeah, everyone.
but it'd have to be evidence that we probably captured, that I know that we didn't touch anything.
Didn't
But
fake it,
again,
yeah.
personally, audio.
Audio.
Personally, audio, yeah.
What do you think?
More compelling.
Jake?
yeah. I don't know. I do like seeing the pictures now. You'll never know which one is, or you never know if any pictures are believable that you'd see online, because it's so easy to edit a photo now. Like,
Doctor them.
you can literally just
absolutely.
Google photo editor and it does it for you.
Like
Yeah.
we've had audio sent in, and unfortunately, people have swore that it's legit, and I've delved into it, and I've had to tell them it wasn't legit.
Actually,
And we always know by the reaction you get.
Yeah.
Some people have got quite
irate.
irate with us over it.
But you know what's funny? Because I don't mind saying this, because we don't give out names or anything. Did you see, I don't know, did you see one of the Instagram messages that we got during the week?
No,
or
no.
last week or the week before? And it was sent in, and it was a picture, and they wanted to be validated. And Bridget would have answered, and she gave an amazing answer. She's like, I'll get back to you as soon as I can. Then she got back and she said, listen, I'm after having a look through that. It's this and it's that. You know, it wasn't paranormal. It was part of the furniture or whatever. And they blocked us.
Yeah, it's we've had that with an audio we
We've
got
had that with
as well.
loads.
And
We just see that the message is blocked.
yeah.
I thought poor little Bridget, like she goes to work and she puts her work in.
And again, if
It
you
was
send us in something good
blocked.
and you're genuinely like, we will give you an honest answer. We're not going to bullshit.
Yeah.
There's no point in saying, yeah, that's it,
I
or whatever,
find-
just to keep people
I
happy.
find personally, I find it very hard to. You know, when you say, "Oh, I've got an EVP" or whatever it is,
Yeah.
I find it so hard to hear it.
Yeah, only certain people, and Billy knows that I find it so
I
hard
find it
as well.
so hard to hear
Billy
it.
has an ear for it because he
Yeah.
does music and everything.
Yeah.
It's different people hear different things.
And see, that's the thing as well.
Yeah.
People hear different things. Now again,
What I do is
back
I
to-
never tell the person what I hear.
You're
So
better
if
off.
somebody does hear it,
Mm.
and if they come out, which has happened a few times, where they'll say, "I've heard blah 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 blah," which is what I've heard.
yeah.
That's
then I'm happy.
brilliant. Yeah.
Because if you tell them what to listen for,
And I don't
they're-
try.
they're-
Yeah,
That's what
and I
they
don't try
hear.
and force Tina to hear it, or Chris or anybody.
Yeah,
If
yeah.
they don't hear it, they don't hear it.
It's
No.
just so hard. It's just whatever it is about myself. It mustn't have the whatever it is, but I find it so hard. Like if you could say to me, "Oh, that's after saying it's a bag of eggs,"
Mm.
I'd hear it's a bag of chisels. Like, do you know what I mean?
Totally
Do you know
different.
what I mean?
Yeah.
It's just
Well, you got
like-
the start of it right. It's a bag of.
You should never tell the listener what you want them to hear.
Because
Yeah.
that's what
Just
they
let
hear.
them listen,
Mm.
and if they hear something, they hear it. That's why I'll always, and the people are fed up with me probably using the word anomaly.
But that's what it is.
But then you get noisy spirits as well, which I suppose are poltergeists. They
Yeah.
are classed as noisy spirits,
Mm.
and most EVPs are captured at poltergeist activity
Yeah.
locations.
Yeah.
So it's a good way to finish it up.
That's a brilliant way to finish up. So on that one, we'll end this episode. And first of all, just before we end, I want to say thanks to everybody who has listened to the
Yeah.
episodes, the first 4 that we've had out so far. The support on Facebook, Instagram, Spotify,
TikTok.
YouTube, TikTok, everything. We're delighted. And we'll finish up now, episode 5. So from myself, Tina.
Billy,
Jake.
And Chris, and as always, stay spooky.
You have been listening to Paranormal Researchers Island podcast. All sound effects were sourced on Epidemic Sound app with thanks to SFX producer. Intro and outro music, Nothing to be Scared of by Kakuru, and main team background music, Down the Rabbit Hole by Christian Anderson, and not forgetting the original dog bark from our special guest Alfie, the resident hound of the Baskerville. PRI podcast recorded by Jake and mixed by Bill using Adobe Audition. We hope you enjoyed our podcast, so why not join us for our very next supernatural podcast? coming very soon.